Okay guys, so anyone who's into bait finesse or has been a follower of my channel for any length of time will immediately recognize this reel. It is the Tsurinoya Whirlwind XF50, or we just call it the XF50 for short. Ever since BCSG Fishing discovered this reel and did some videos on it, this thing has enjoyed the title of being the best bait finesse reel out of China. And that is attributed, in my opinion, to the fact that its rivals, the Hybo Steed and the C-Knot POTM, both have such weak brakes that it made those reels pretty much unfishable. And this has gained popularity. This is almost like a cult reel. Anyone who's into, well, I should say anyone who wanted to get into bait finesse fishing and didn't want to spend a ton of money bought this reel right here. And in fact, there are several YouTubers who have started their bait finesse journey by buying this reel. And with good reason. It performs a lot better than its specs would suggest. It's kind of got a heavy spool, but it casts everything but the really lightest lures extremely well. And the fact that this thing is very affordable. When I bought it, it was only like $57, and right now sometimes you can get it for under 50 bucks. But that reign was ended abruptly a couple of months ago when this bad boy came out. The Fish Band Brilliance GH100, or we just call it a GH100 for short. Now this reel, I called it the first dedicated bait finesse reel out of China because they pretty much copied right down to the T Shimano's finesse tune brake system, which Shimano puts in all three of its dedicated bait finesse reels. And by doing that, this thing performs just as good, probably better than a lot of the higher dollar bait finesse reels out of Japan. And it is superior to the XF50 in pretty much every way, except for size. But in my opinion, this casts better. It's smoother, it's built a lot better, more solid, more refined. And it's pretty tough. I've been fishing this reel regularly this whole summer. I haven't caught anything huge. Probably, you know, a 1 pounder is the biggest that I've caught. But this thing's been stuck in my car all summer long in the heat. And I just pulled it out today, and it is just as smooth and quiet as day one. So a lot of people have been buying this reel now to start off their bait finesse journey. But Tsurinoya hasn't been sitting on their ass, just sitting there watching people buy the GH100. They've been evolving, and they've come out with this reel right here, the Spirit Fox. And if you take a look at this little graphic, this is a dedicated bait finesse reel, even though they spell it different. I just got this reel in the mail today. It's been a really long wait. Took probably almost a month to get this, but I have not opened up this package. I wanted to share that with you guys. But let's get to it. Okay, so the Spirit Fox comes in at around $60, just like the others. So $60 seems to be the sweet spot. As you can see, it comes with a nice little bag, and it comes with paperwork, schematics, but we want to know what this reel looks like. Could this take the crown back as being the best bait finesse reel out of China? And here it is. I'll have to say, that looks really nice. I'm not a fan of the, seafoam blue, but this reel looks really good. let you guys take a good look at this thing. It's got sea foam everywhere. I'm already liking it. Now this actually comes in two colors. It comes with black frame and then red side plates, as well as this black frame and seafoam blue. And I personally would prefer the red side plates, but I thought I'd inject a little bit more color into my channel because there's so many black and red reels out there that I've done reviews on. But yeah, let me do my inspection on this thing and I'll be right back. Okay, so after studying this Spirit Fox reel, I've come to the conclusion that this is a slight evolution of the XF50. Now if you take a look at these reels closely, they are pretty much the same reel with the frame modified to be pointier on the Spirit Fox. So they're the same size, the same height, and of course the Spirit Fox has this cutout in the front. But yeah, it's kind of a small evolutionary step forward in some ways, and it actually kind of went backwards in a couple of ways, which I'm going to go over with you right now. For all you guys who have the XF50 and you are eyeballing this Spirit Fox right here, thinking, you know, should I get it? So the gear ratio stays the same at the 6.6 to 1. Where is it? Right there. Now it actually has one less ball bearing according to the information on AliExpress. It's got 8+1 bearings, while allegedly the XF50 had, I think, 9+1 bearings. And it's actually got a shorter handle. Now on AliExpress they're claiming this thing has a 96mm handle, but it's actually about 85mm. And I know that because visually that looks short, and I also compared it against the CHRONARCH MGL that has a 96mm handle, and that is way short. Now the XF50 has a 90mm handle, and it is longer, as you can see. And also the drag star is now graphite instead of metal on the XF50, but the clicks on the Spirit Fox are a lot more positive now. It's not quite as vague and mushy as the XF50. And also the spool tension has gotten smaller. Now that's one thing I really enjoyed with the XF50. It's got this nice big spool tension that has really precise positive clicks. Now they kind of made that smaller for some reason on the Spirit Fox, but as you can see, you got that Fox logo, but the precise click is still there, which is good. But other than that, they just changed the color. Now they claim that the frame and side plates are now made of carbon, like the GH100. I kind of question that because it feels about the same, but holding them in hand, it does feel a little bit more solid than the XF50, and that might be just because this is new and I've never used it yet. Well, the XF50 I've kind of used, and yeah. But everything else, the thumb bar looks the same. Brake adjustments look the same. But yeah, let's go over some other changes which are positive. The handle is now carbon, and it's got a lot better knobs. These knobs are super comfortable. Not only are they shaped nice, but they are ergonomically formed, I guess you can say. You can see that little curve there, and they feel really, really good. In fact, if they sold these knobs on their own, I would pick up a set for some reels that I have. It's relatively smooth, you know, nothing to write home about. But yeah, that's some of the changes there. But there are some significant changes for the better, other than, you know, the knobs and the fact that the handle is carbon. And that's going to be this thing right here, the spool. So to go over the changes in the spool, let's pop the scale out. Okay guys, so I got the scale out, and one of the major changes and improvements over the old XF50 was they say it lost a lot of weight. I think over an ounce. So first thing we're going to do is going to weigh this XF50, and it comes in at 6.8 ounces. Now the GH100 came in at only 5.6 ounces. So let's see what this new Spirit Fox weighs. It feels pretty light in my hand. Okay, so it barely tips the scales at slightly under 5.7 ounces. So it is definitely lighter, and holding them in hand, I can definitely feel it. And I can tell you exactly how they lost all that weight was getting rid of this metal handle with these metal knobs and replacing it with the shorter handle that's made of carbon fiber and these rubber knobs. That is pretty much where all the weight loss came from. Okay, but the most important thing is going to be the spool. Now with the XF50, it performs surprisingly well despite having a relatively deep spool for true bait finesse applications, or bait finesse classification, I guess you could say. So that is the one thing that they addressed with this Spirit Fox. And they made two major changes in that spool to make this thing better. If I can just... Okay, I was pushing the wrong way there. Alright, so I'm going to take this spool out. And I'm going to take out the spool on the XF50 and show you the changes there. Okay, so the first thing you can see is that the spool depth is a lot shallower on this Spirit Fox now. Probably half as shallow, or almost half as shallow as the XF50. So that was one of the main things that hindered the XF50 from handling truly ultralight weights. I'm talking, you know, under 3 grams, as well as some of its rivals. Was that if you filled the spool up all the way, that added too much weight. Now of course you could compensate by filling the spool up less than halfway, which I've mentioned in the past. But with the Spirit Fox, they went ahead and handled that for you and made the spool a lot more shallow. And then the second thing they did with the spool was, if you can take a look at the spool shaft material, the XF50 used stainless steel, which was heavy, and with the Spirit Fox they went with aluminum, which is much lighter. So they say this spool weighs, I think, 9.6 grams out of the box before you remove the bearing. So let's go ahead and weigh these spools. Okay, so XF50 spool, shit, that's the wrong unit of measurement. Okay, there we go. Was right at 13 grams pretty much. While the Spirit Fox, whoa, 9.48, so just under 9.5 grams. And I can tell you that you can feel it just picking up one after the other that the Spirit Fox spool is much lighter. Now what about the GH 100? Let's pop this spool out. I kind of forgot how much this weighs, but this too employs an aluminum spool shaft that's short. But this thing weighs, so it's actually heavier than the Spirit Fox. 9.55, 9.46. So when you take the bearing off, this spool probably weighs somewhere about 8.3 grams or 8.4 grams. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna satisfy my curiosity and remove the spool on both of these reels and see what they weigh. Okay, so I've removed the spool bearings from all three reels just to satisfy my curiosity. And let's weigh this Spirit Fox. No way, that can't be true. So the spool weighs only 7.8 grams without the bearing. That is ridiculous. I thought it would be closer to 8.3 or 8.4. So that is half a gram lighter than the GH 100. So the GH 100's reign might be short-lived. And that's crazy how they did that, considering this long spool shaft. So wow, 7.8 gram spool out of a reel from China. So that's almost 4 grams lighter than the XF50 spool. And combine that with the fact that it will hold less slide. Man, I can't wait to get this thing out on the water and see how this thing casts. So just to put that in perspective for you guys, let me take the spool out of the Scorpion BFS and show you the difference. Okay, so just to show you how significant that spool weight is, this is the spool of the $250 Scorpion BFS from Shimano. 8.8 grams. 7.8 grams, that's a full gram lighter. And this is the spool from the $300 plus ALDEBARAN BFS, which is probably the best bait finesse reel out on the market today. 7.6 grams. Now granted, it has a tiny bearing, but without the bearing, this is only 7.2 grams. So this thing is within half a gram of the super high dollar Shimano ALDEBARAN BFS, and that's ridiculous. I did not think that this spool would be this light. That is crazy. Okay guys, so as I was putting these spool bearings back on the spools, I just had to laugh because it's pretty obvious Tsurinoya is not playing around with this Spirit Fox reel. Now you're getting a super light spool in a reel that's only $60. Now of course, a super light spool is only half the equation. It's not going to make any difference how light the spool is if the brakes are shit. So there's only really one way to test out the brakes for sure, and that's to take it out on the water. But let's do an impromptu brake test here. So I have the brakes turned up to maximum now, but let's turn them up to minimum and see how long this spool spins. So almost 4 seconds. Now I felt I don't know, it felt like some resistance there, but let's turn it up to maximum and see how long the spool spins now. So barely even a second. So that's promising right there. Now, one thing that I was kind of worried about when I was waiting for this reel to get here was that when they change the spool material, well, I should say the spool shaft material from stainless steel to aluminum, that may affect the brake strength or that magnetic current. So here's the XF50 and the brakes are turned to maximum. So not even half a second. So these are really strong brakes. But here's one thing that you XF50 owners may want to know, and I'm not sure if it's a good move by Tsurinoya, but apparently they're already selling the Spirit Fox spool by itself. So you can just buy this spool from their store on AliExpress. It's only like $13.50. Now let's see if this thing fits into the XF50, or did Tsurinoya engineer some kind of a change so it would not work and you have to buy the whole reel itself. Alright, so far so good. Alright, it looks like it fits. There we go. I think the bearing on this spool needs to be cleaned because it's making some kind of noise, but it looks like a perfect fit for the XF50. So for those of you guys who own this reel but you don't want to spend another 60 bucks, you can just spend $13.50 to get that spool. Now, of course, you're not going to get the, advantage of the much lighter weight of the Spirit Fox, but once again, not sure that's a good business move by Tsurinoya, but just want to let you guys know that. So let's talk about the Spirit Fox against the current champion, the GH100. Now, Tsurinoya pretty much addressed the main performance weakness that it had versus the GH100 by lightening the spool and making it shallower. And it kept its advantage of being a smaller, more comfortable reel to palm, at least in my opinion. So you can take a look at the size there. The width is about the same. Maybe the Spirit Fox is a little wider, but the Spirit Fox is definitely much lower on the reel seat. In fact, I've mounted this on a rod and it feels just like the XF50. So that was the one weakness on the GH100, was that it sits higher than most other bait finesse reels. But I can tell you this, the GH100 does feel smoother and more refined when turning the handle. But yeah, there's only really one way to find out who's going to be king, and that's to take this reel out on the water and see how it casts bait finesse lures. And maybe we'll do a measured cast battle against the GH100 if it isn't 1,000 degrees outside. So, one more thing I wanted to address. Now, apparently the Japanese manufacturers are kind of cooling off on the bait finesse scene. They really haven't come out with anything new in the last couple of years of any significance as far as bait finesse goes. But the Chinese manufacturers have turned the heat up. Now, of course, they've come out with this GH100, now this Spirit Fox. But if you go over to Roar Fishing's channel, KASTKING looks like they're maybe getting into the bait finesse game. Now, they've sent a prototype bait finesse reel to Roar Fishing for him to test out, and he's got several videos of that reel already if you want to go check that out on his channel. But from what I've seen, it looks pretty promising. They've put it on the MEGABASS platform, and I think they've included ceramic bearings as standard. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like it needs a little bit stronger brakes. That, of course, is just based on the videos I've seen. But yeah, it looks like KASTKING may be getting into the bait finesse game. If it comes out, I'm not sure what the price will be on that that reel, but hopefully they will come out with that. But there we go, guys. The next time you see the Spirit Fox, it's going to be out on the water casting bait finesse lures. Okay, guys, thanks a lot.